And then let's take a few more minutes to make sure we have a really positive motivation for being here. Some of you may already have such a motivation, like the bodhicitta motivation. But in case you don't, we can always change that. We can bring such a positive motivation into our minds. So the best motivation we can have for the things we do is wanting to benefit others, other people, other beings, the world. So some of you are familiar with the bodhicitta motivation, wishing to become a Buddha, fully enlightened, to be able to help all other beings in the best possible way. So if you're familiar with that motivation, then you can bring that into your mind, make that your motivation, your reason for being here and participating in this retreat, this course. Any of you who are not familiar with the bodhicitta motivation or not comfortable with it, then an alternative is to just feel the wish to benefit others and to benefit the world. I think all of us do feel that way, at least sometimes. We would like to help others, we would like to relieve suffering, bring peace and happiness to others and to the world. So see if you can remember that state of mind, that thought, that feeling. Bring that into your mind now, and then think that that's why you're here. You're here to learn ways that you can be more beneficial to other people and beings and to the world. Okay, so I'm really happy to be back in Maitreya Instituut. I have visited many times, both in the previous center in Emst and also in this center, but I guess it's been about 9 years since I was last here, so it's really nice to be back. And last year I was in Spain and I met Venerable Norbu in Valencia. He went there to visit his the Lama who ordained him, Geshe Lamsang, and we just had a brief chat, and he said, please come back to Maitreya. So I had the opportunity to come this year, and he also asked me to give a weekend course on this. Well, it's a new book, relatively new, although it was published a year ago, but it's my newest book, latest book, which is called How to Meditate on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. So he asked me to do a weekend course on this book, which is a bit daunting because it's quite a big book. It's quite a big topic. And yeah, there's a copy there. So it's not like a little skinny book, but it's quite big. And so I certainly won't be able to cover the whole book, but I'll just give a kind of overview of the stages of the path to enlightenment, or Lamrim. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Lamrim, but maybe some of you are not. So I hope that even if you're not familiar with the Lamrim, you'll become more familiar with it during this weekend. And tonight I'll mainly talk and give an introduction to the topic of the Lamrim, and I've made some slides that have some of the information that might help you. And also you're able to get a copy of the slides. I think either they've been emailed to you, or anyway, you can, it's in the box. So you can get a copy of that. I'm just saying that because I notice sometimes when I'm doing a slideshow, people are frantically trying to write everything down, or they're using their phone to take pictures of it. So you don't need to do that. You can have all the slides on your device. So during this weekend, part of the time I will be talking and giving explanation about the Lamrim and the topics of the Lamrim. And we will also do some meditations, because that's the whole point of the Lamrim, is to learn about it and meditate on it, to bring about a transformation of our mind. And there'll also be opportunities for you to ask questions. I'll try my best to answer your questions. And tomorrow afternoon we'll also have a discussion in little groups. So you can break into small groups and discuss some of the topics that we're going through. Okay, so the first slide, just an introduction to the Lamrim. What happened? Next slide. The next slide. That one, yes, that one. So what is the Lamrim? So this is a Tibetan term. Lam is the word for path. Rim means like stages or steps, or like the idea of a gradual progression. So Lamrim we translate as the stages of the path, and the path is the path to enlightenment, to Buddhahood. So the Lamrim is like a map showing us the way to attain enlightenment or Buddhahood. So it's similar to if you want to go somewhere, like you want to drive from here to, say, Hamburg or Venice, somewhere. And it wouldn't be wise to just get in your car and start driving without knowing where you're going. So in the old days, we would have a map. Nowadays, you just have a GPS, you can Google Maps. Sometimes it's built right into your car. But anyway, there is a map that takes you from point A to point B. So it kind of goes through all the different highways and so on and so forth. And so in a similar way, the Lamrim is like that. It's like a map for how to get from where we are now as unenlightened beings, non-Buddhas, we could say, to the state of Buddhahood, enlightenment. And so, according to Buddhism, everyone has the potential to reach enlightenment. It's just what we call Buddha nature. And for me personally, when I first started studying Buddhism, this is one of the things that I was just so happy to hear. at this point in time, I don't know about you, but I know, when I first started learning Buddhism, my mind was really a mess. I had a lot of unhappiness, a lot of disturbing emotions, disturbing thoughts, and just a lot of problems in my life that I didn't know how to manage. And I really wanted to find a way out of this mess, this situation. And so what Buddhism says is that there is a way. We can become free from all the disturbing thoughts and emotions in our mind and all the different problems we experience in our life. And we can reach the state the Buddha attained. So the Buddha wasn't always a Buddha. The term Buddha means awakened one who has awakened, one who has attained awakening or enlightenment. So he wasn't always like that. He was once an ordinary person like us. And he had problems, he had difficulties, he had disturbing emotions in his mind. But he found a way out of that situation. He found a way to be free of all those disturbing thoughts and emotions, and to be in a state of mind that's like completely pure and peaceful and blissful all the time. So that's, in a nutshell, the meaning of Buddhahood or enlightenment or awakening. So it's a state of mind in which there are no more disturbing thoughts, emotions like anger, depression, greed, selfishness, jealousy, arrogance, and so on. No more ignorance, no more confusion. So all the disturbing thoughts and emotions have been totally ceased, totally stopped, so they don't come up anymore. And instead, all the good qualities, all the positive qualities like love and compassion and wisdom and generosity and patience and joy. So all of those good experiences, good states of mind are present all the time, and they're in the most fully perfected way possible. So it's like a mind that is completely purified and fully developed and everything positive. And when you reach that state, when you reach enlightenment, there's no coming back. It's not like just a temporary situation and then you lose it afterwards. It's not like that. Once you've reached it, you've got it forever. So it's like an eternal state. So that's just a brief explanation of enlightenment or Buddhahood. So the Buddha realized everyone has the ability, the potential to attain that state. And so after he attained enlightenment, then he spent the remaining years of his life explaining how to do it, what we need to do to reach enlightenment. So the attainment of enlightenment isn't something that happens all at once, in one instant, but it's a gradual process whereby our mind gradually becomes less negative and deluded and confused and more positive and wise and compassionate. So it's a kind of gradual process, a step-by-step process. And it's also not something that happens on its own. It's not something that's just going to happen to us out of the blue without our doing anything. So instead, we have to do it, basically. It's up to us to do whatever needs to be done in order to reach enlightenment. So we have to make effort, we have to create the right causes and conditions. And what happened to the slide? Yeah. Okay. So this process of transformation of the mind happens by way of a threefold process. There's like 3 steps that we have to go through to follow the Lamrim, the stages of the path. So the Lamrim consists of many different topics that we have to engage with these 3 steps. The first is listening, and so that involves listening to teachings, hearing teachings from someone who's a reliable guide, a reliable teacher. So the teacher themselves must have learned the teachings of the path to enlightenment from their teachers, who are again reliable teachers, and then they have studied them, meditated on them, have a good understanding of them, and so they're able to explain them to others. So we need to find such reliable teachers, and we can supplement the learning, listening to teachings from teachers. We can also supplement that with reading. So when I started learning Buddhism in 1973, there were very, very few books available in English or any of our European languages. So that's changed. Fortunately, there's lots of books. I can't even keep up with them. There's all these new books coming out, and I really want to read them, but I don't have the time. But anyway, it's really wonderful that over the last few decades, many translators have translated books, and others have written books. So there's many more books available now on the Lamrim. So you can read those books to increase your knowledge, your understanding. And all that's included in this first step of listening. So listening mainly involves gaining the knowledge, gaining the knowledge of the path, of the Lamrim. But the Lamrim, the path to enlightenment, isn't just some intellectual subject like biology or history that we just learn and then we kind of store the information in our brain. But it's really meant to be integrated into our mind, into our way of being and way of living our life. So we need the next 2 steps. The second one is, it's called thinking, can also be called reflecting. So we need to think about, reflect on, contemplate what we have learned, the teachings of the Lamrim, so that the understanding goes deeper into our mind. We understand them more deeply. So this step of thinking can be done while listening. So while sitting and listening to teachings given by a teacher, you can be thinking about them. I mean, we normally do that anyway. We're thinking, our mind is processing what we're hearing. Unless your mind has gone somewhere else, if you're gone back home or gone to the beach or wherever. That does happen sometimes. But if you are able to keep your attention there and paying attention to what you're listening to, then you can be thinking about it at the same time. But we can also think about the teachings at other times. When we're studying or even going for a walk, or also if we have discussions with our spiritual friends, other students of Buddhism. So when we're discussing with them, at that time we're also probably thinking about the teachings. And then the third step is meditating. And so this follows from the first 2 steps. After having listened to and learned and gained some initial understanding of the teachings, and then thought about them to get a better understanding of them, then we meditate on our understanding, the understanding that we have. And when we meditate, we try to have as much concentration as possible. We try to keep our mind concentrated on the topic that we're meditating on and not let it be wandering elsewhere. Of course, that's not easy to do, as you probably know, but we at least try to do that. And so when we meditate on what we've understood, then that understanding goes more deeply into our mind. And if we keep doing it again and again, not just once or twice, but numerous times, then it gradually changes our way of thinking. Yeah, our thinking changes, our way of seeing things changes, and that will also affect the way we live our life. Yeah. So, for example, one of the topics in the Lamrim is karma, the law of cause and effect, which has to do with our actions, our behavior. And so this is a really important topic, especially in the beginning of our learning and practicing Buddhism. We need to understand that we are responsible for our experiences. Our happiness and our suffering aren't created by anybody else, like a creator God or other people, our parents, our friends, and so on. They are not responsible for our happiness and our problems, but rather it's our karma. So the main cause, of course, there's many different causes and conditions for why we experience the things we do, but according to Buddhism, the main cause is our own karma. And karma means actions that we've done in the past. So it's like we are the creators of our experiences. We are responsible for whether we are happy and doing well, or whether we are miserable and having a lot of problems. So the main cause for that is our karma. So it's quite important to understand karma, because everyone wants to be happy and to have good experiences, and we also don't want suffering and problems and bad experiences. So if we are the ones responsible for that, then we need to know what kind of actions or karma are the cause for happiness, so that we can make sure we do those things, and what kind of actions are the cause of suffering and problems, so that we make sure to avoid those. So that's just the essence of the topic of karma. It's quite complex. There's a lot of different things to learn about and meditate on with regard to karma. But when you do learn about and think about and meditate on karma, then that will bring about a change in the way you live your life. Yeah, I mean, if you can accept karma, of course, a lot of people have trouble accepting it and have resistance to it. But if you are able to accept the teachings on karma, then you will most probably change some of the things you do. You'll stop doing certain things that you used to do, like saying nasty things about people behind their back or even to their face. So you'll try to stop doing that, because that is, not only is it hurtful for others, but you're also creating bad karma, negative karma, that's going to come back at you sometime and cause you to suffer. So that's just one example of how you will make changes in your life and the things you do after having an understanding of karma. So that's the real purpose of the Lamrim. All the different topics of the Lamrim is to get us to look at our mind and our life and our way of doing things, the things that we do, and make changes so that we act more wisely and skillfully. And So this is just a brief overview, and we'll go into these three things more later. But people sometimes want to know where a tradition comes from and how it developed. So the next slide talks about that, how the Lamrim developed, just in brief. So Buddhism started coming from India into Tibet in around the 7th or 8th century of the Common Era. And one of the Indian masters who came to Tibet was called Atisha. He was a great Indian master, Atisha. And he spent the last 17 years of his life in Tibet. He was already quite advanced in years when he went to Tibet. He was 60 or so. And then he stayed in Tibet until he died, and he taught. And he wrote the first Lamrim text, which is called The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And this has been translated. There are translations of this text if you're interested. And then following him, other Lamrim texts were written by Tibetan masters. So there's numerous. So Lamrim isn't just one text, but it's more like a genre of text, a type of text, and a type of teaching that started with Atisha and then continued over the centuries. So in our tradition, in the Gelugpa tradition, we have texts on the Lamrim written by Lama Tsongkhapa. He's the founder of the Gelugpa tradition, and he wrote a number of texts on the Lamrim. One is called the Lamrim Chenmo, or that translates as the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path, and that's in English. It's available in English and also several other European languages. I don't know if is there a Dutch translation? Maybe most people can read. There is? It's in Dutch?
Transcripts of the teachings of Geshe on the subject.
Oh, okay. And those are available in a book form? Or just transcripts, yeah. So the Lamrim Chenmo is actually quite long. In the English translation is in 3 books, 3 volumes. So it's not like a little book. But anyway, it's wonderful that is in English and in several other languages. And there's also shorter Lamrim texts by Lama Tsongkhapa and also by other masters. For example, one very popular one is called Liberation in the Palm of the Hand by Pabonka Rinpoche, who lived in the last century. And so he's kind of relatively modern, contemporary. And that book is also translated into English and several other European languages. So that's a well-known Lamrim text. And also in the other traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, there are similar texts about the path to enlightenment. For example, there's one called The Jewel Ornament of Liberation by Gampopa. Gampopa was a disciple of Milarepa. And so I don't know when that was, 11th century, something like that, quite a long time ago. And that's also translated. That's a beautiful, beautiful book. And then in the Nyingma tradition, there's a book called The Words of My Perfect Teacher by Patro Rinpoche. He's also relatively recent, I think in the end of the 18th century. Yeah. And that's a wonderful book, a beautiful, beautiful book. And then in the Sakya tradition, there's a book called Parting from the Four Attachments. And that's also similar to the Lamrim. It's kind of going through the the different things we need to learn about and meditate on and practice in order to go on the path to enlightenment. So at the back of my book, if you get a copy of that, there's a recommended reading list, and I've kind of arranged the books in different groups, starting with introductory books, just in case you find that the Lamrim is too advanced for you. Then there's more basic books to start with. And then I've put the Lamrim books in different groups, starting with short ones, relatively short, and then medium length ones, and then really long ones. So you can kind of take your pick, depending on how much time you have and how much you really want to go into depth with this topic. But anyway, there's a lot of different books on the topic of Lamrim, and yeah, I love the Lamrim. I've been learning about it for the last 52 years, and I don't get tired of it. There's always more to learn, and also deepening your understanding as you go along. Okay, so the next slide is, this is 3 levels or 3 scopes. So the Lamrim consists of a number of different topics, and they are divided into these 3 groups, which are called 3 levels, sometimes called 3 scopes. And the 3 levels are initial, intermediate, and advanced. And then if you use the term scope, then they're called small scope, medium scope, great scope. So that's just the terminology that you encounter when you're reading Lamrim books. And these 3 levels, I'll go into more detail about them during the weekend, but just to introduce them now. So the 3 levels contain practices that are meant for 3 types of practitioners, people who are practicing, meditating, who are at different levels. They're at different levels of capacity, or their ability to practice. So for the initial level, the practices, the meditations of the initial level, are for people of initial capacity, and they basically are about turning away from an attitude of being just totally obsessed with this lifetime. Like most people in the world, that's where they're at. They're only thinking about this life, and often with a lot of attachment and a lot of ego. Like they want money, they want power, they want fame, they want influence and friends and so on. So they're just completely caught up in this present life and not thinking at all about anything beyond this life, right? Taking no thought at all. Not thinking about the fact that this life is going to end at some point, and we don't know when that's going to happen. It could happen any time. But this life is going to end. And then according to Buddhism, as you probably know, there is rebirth, there is reincarnation. So our mind, our consciousness leaves this body, this life, and then goes and takes another body, another life. And where we are born and the circumstances of our next life depend on how we live this life. So in a way, the way we live our life now, we are creating the causes for the experiences that we're going to have in the next life and later lives. And so then this again comes to the topic of karma. The karma we're creating now, we're going to meet the results of our karma in the next life. So if we're creating bad karma, we're doing negative things, harmful things, then we're probably going to have bad experiences in our next life. But if we create good karma, virtuous karma, we live in an ethical way, in a non-harmful way, doing as much good as we can, then we're creating the cause for good experiences in our next life and thereafter. And so if you can accept all this, I mean, there's a number of topics related to this, but if you accept this, then it really helps you to make changes in the way you live your life. Because you realize, well, I don't want suffering, I don't want problems, so I better refrain from bad karma during my life. And I want happiness, I want good experiences, so I better create good karma, virtue. And so the general idea of this initial scope is becoming interested, becoming concerned, rather, about what's beyond this life, rather than being exclusively concerned with this present life. And then the second level is the intermediate level. This is for people of medium capacity. And so here, a person of medium capacity wants more than just a good rebirth and good experiences in the next life, because they realize, well, that's still imperfect, that's still unsatisfactory. I want to get out of this whole situation, what we call samsara, the cycle of death and rebirth, dying and being reborn over and over and over and over again. I want to get out of this situation, and I want to attain nirvana, liberation. And so the intermediate, the topics of the intermediate level are all about that. How to generate that aspiration to attain nirvana, and then what do you have to do to attain it? Yeah? What are the causes for nirvana? So that's the general idea of that intermediate level. And then the advanced level, usually it's called the great scope. So this is for those who open their hearts and realize that others are suffering as well. Others are in this unsatisfactory situation of samsara, and they want to free not only themselves, but others as well. So they want to help other people, other beings, all beings without exception, to become free of all their suffering and unsatisfactory experiences. And the way to do that, the way to help others, is to become a fully enlightened being, a Buddha, to reach the highest state possible, which is Buddhahood. And again, the reason for wanting to reach Buddhahood isn't just for oneself, but it's for others, to be able to help others. So this is the bodhisattva path. This is the path of the bodhisattva. What you need to do to become a bodhisattva and then follow the bodhisattva path, which culminates in full enlightenment or Buddhahood. So that's the point of that third level of the path. So the Lamrim, the intended audience of the Lamrim, is actually that third type of person, the person who wants to help all living beings and become a Buddha to help all living beings. But to be able to follow that third level of the path, you can only do so on the basis of the first two. You can't just jump to that third one and skip over the first two, because it won't work. This will get clearer later as we go along. But so you really have to go gradually. It's similar to kind of like our education system, right? We have usually we have 3 different levels of education. I don't know what it's called here in Holland, but the first level is primary school, or what's another term for that? Elementary school. You have your term. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. When you're a little kid, you start going to school and learning to read. So you go to that kind of school, and you learn the things you need to know, and then you go on to the next level, like high school. You call it high school, yeah? And then you go to high school for a while, and you learn the things you need to know to go to college or university, yeah? And so you can't just go straight into university at the age of 6 unless you're like a child prodigy. I mean, there are kids who do that. It's amazing. But normally, that isn't possible. You first have to go gradually, learn the things you need to know, and then you can go to the higher levels of education, like university. So it's kind of like that with the Lamrim. We have to go gradually through the different stages and then eventually get to the great scope, the Bodhisattva's path. So we'll go into these in more depth during the course. And just one last slide before we stop tonight. So there's 2 kinds of meditation that we use in the Lamrim, to meditate on the topics of the Lamrim. So one kind is, the sort of technical term is placement meditation or stabilizing meditation. And this is for developing concentration. It's for learning to keep our mind concentrated. So you have an object, there's always one object you choose. It could be the breath or various other options. But anyway, you choose an object and then you focus your mind on that object and try to keep your mind on that object as long as you can, starting with like a few seconds. That runs away. But then if you keep practicing, you can keep your mind on the object for longer periods of time. In other words, you're developing your ability to concentrate, to have single-pointed concentration. So that's really important. That's a really important skill to develop. It isn't an end in itself. Just with concentration itself, we're not going to reach enlightenment. We can feel good. You can feel really good when you have concentration, even blissful. But that's not our goal. Our goal isn't just feeling blissful. We need more. And mainly what we need is wisdom. And so the second type of meditation is called analytical meditation, and that is to develop wisdom or insight. And so this is actually the main kind of meditation that's used for the Lamrim. We need both, but for the Lamrim topics, we mainly use analytical meditation. And this is a kind of meditation that not everyone knows about. The first kind is pretty well known, but the second one isn't. And so I'll try my best during this weekend to help you understand analytical meditation, what's involved in that. But it involves thinking, using thought, and not just any kind of thought, like letting your mind go all over the place, but focused thought. So, for example, I already mentioned the topic of karma. That's one of the topics in the Lamrim. So when you're doing an analytical meditation, you would be thinking about, contemplating what the teachings say about karma. And it's kind of like you're checking. Lama Yeshe used to call this checking meditation, because what we're doing is we're investigating, checking to see if these teachings are true or not. Are there things we can believe, we can accept or not? And so like you probably heard, the Buddha, when he was teaching, he said, don't just believe what I'm saying, check it for yourself, analyze it for yourself. And he used the analogy of a goldsmith who investigates like a piece of metal, because there's things that look like gold but are not gold, right? So you want to make sure before you pay a lot of money for this stuff, you want to make sure it really is gold and isn't something fake. So they have certain tests they use to determine if this material is real gold or not. So the Buddha said, you should be like that with teachings. My teachings, anybody's teachings, any religious or philosophical teachings you encounter. You shouldn't just swallow it, buy it, believe it without checking. You need to investigate. Is this true or not? Is this valid or not? Is this good or not? So analytical meditation is for that purpose. It's for checking the Buddha's teachings to see if they are true or not, if we can believe them or not. And the ultimate purpose for doing analytical meditation is to realize the true nature of everything. And this is one of the most important things that the Buddha taught. What is the reality of things? How does we exist? How do each of us, myself, my I, how do I exist? What is my real nature? And what is the real nature of other people, other beings? What is the real nature of the world? What is the real nature of samsara, nirvana? What is the true nature of all of these things? So the Buddha gave an explanation of that, but we have to think about it, meditate on it, check it for ourselves, and then come to an actual first-hand experience, a realization of that. And that's really the most important thing, because it's that realization of the true nature of things, what we call emptiness, that enables us to become free of our suffering, our problems, and the causes of problems, and reach the state of enlightenment. So that's not something we can do just by concentrating our mind and not thinking about anything. that won't happen. So we need to use thought, analysis, investigation, but also combined with concentration. Because if we don't know how to concentrate our mind, if our mind is just scattered and wandering all over the place, we will not be able to gain that very focused attention that enables us to realize the true nature of things. So this is just a really brief introduction to what we're going to be doing over the weekend. So over the weekend, you'll have a chance to do both of these types of meditation, starting tomorrow morning. So, according to the schedule, there's a meditation at 7 o'clock, and it will be led by Annalise, and it will be a part of the time will be the placement meditation, focusing on the breath to get more concentration. And then there'll be a kind of introductory analytical meditation about the mind, how Buddhism explains the mind, what is the mind, because that's a really important topic of Buddhist teaching, because it's our mind that meditates. It's also our mind that will attain enlightenment. It's also our mind that creates suffering if it's not well tamed or well trained. So mind is very important.